Vladimir Vasiliev was a legendary Soviet-era dancer, one of the most influential dancers of the 20th century. Although not as well known as Mikhail Baryshnikov or Rudolf Nureyev in the West, many critics considered Vasiliev their equal. Vasiliev made significant contributions to the development of males in ballet, and he embodied the strength of the Bolshoi men. He inspired younger dancers, such as American Ballet Theater's Erman Kornejo and Paris Opera Ballet's Matthias Hayman. Russian choreographer Fedor Lupakov called Vasiliev God of the Dance. In this video, I focus on two of his variations to shed some light on what made him a one-of-a-kind artist. A brief bio before getting to the video. Vladimir Vasiliev was born in Moscow in 1940. The son of a truck driver, he entered the Moscow State Academy of Choreography, commonly known as the Bolshoi Ballet Academy, in 1947. He graduated in 1958 and joined the Bolshoi Ballet as a soloist and was promoted to principal dancer a year later. For the next 20 years, he was the leading male star of the Bolshoi, a hero of the Soviet ballet. Baryshnikov said that Vasiliev was one of the very few people who got me truly inspired. His physical presence and true Russian lyricism were contagious. His art, and later he as a human being, made a big dent in my heart. His wife, Ekaterina Maximova, was also a leading light of the Soviet ballet. As a ballet power couple, their bios were inextricably linked, on stage and off. They first met at the Bolshoi Ballet School when he was 10 and she was 11 years of age. Although close friends, it was not love at first sight, but the relationship developed into love, and they married in 1961. Both were international stars, with many performances outside of the Soviet Union to rave reviews. Katya, as she was known, was unique among artists of the Soviet period in that she was able to perform as a guest artist widely with companies outside of the country in works of leading choreographers. According to Vasiliev's website bio, he and Maximova were forced to retire by the Bolshoi in 1988 by artistic director Yuri Grigorovich, along with other legends of Soviet ballet. 8 years after Vasiliev retired from the Bolshoi, in 1995, he was appointed the general and artistic director of the Bolshoi Theater. Grigorovich, who was the artistic director of the company from 1964, was dismissed by Russian President Boris Yeltsin after the fall of the Soviet Union. Vasiliev's mission was to direct the entire Bolshoi opera and ballet to recapture its past glory and produce new works. Vasiliev took over a company that was in bad shape, what Simon Morrison describes as a dilapidated company, reflecting the theater's sagging, buckling, firetrap condition. In his 5 years as head of the Bolshoi, Vasiliev's website credits 16 opera and 14 new ballet productions, new fundraising methods to generate cash for large-scale tours, the start of reconstruction of the Bolshoi Theater, and a streamlined method of company promotion. However, to his detractors, Vasiliev failed to fulfill the promise to revitalize the ballet and opera companies. Vasiliev was dismissed in 2000 by a decree from new President Vladimir Putin. He learned about his dismissal from hearing it on the radio. According to Morrison, the firing of Grigorovich in 1995 led to a revolving door of Bolshoi ballet heads, their tenures undistinguished, except for Alexei Ratmansky. In 2008, the Bolshoi Theater celebrated the 50th anniversary of the careers of Maximova and Vasiliev with a 5-day festival. In 2009, after coaching a new production of Swan Lake, Maximova went home to rest. Late for a rehearsal, the theater called her elderly mother to check up on her. Her mother found her lifeless body on her bed, a victim of heart failure at the age of 70. Vasiliev was devastated by her passing. Since Katya passed away, I do not give myself a minute of rest, so that my memory will not take me over. Everything is difficult now without her. I cannot share my joy with her anymore. Joy that cannot be shared is not a genuine joy. After the Bolshoi, Vasiliev remained active as a choreographer and advisor and judge in ballet competitions. Back to his dancing. The first variation is the acrobatic Don Quixote pas de deux from 1972 with his wife Maximova when they were in their early 30s. I don't know the source of the original presentation, but it was not taped before a live audience, so multiple takes of the variations were likely. Look for his outstanding athleticism and command, particularly in his high leaps. Take a look at his first 1-minute variation, and I will be back with commentary. Vasiliev's Don Quixote variation is fairly standard, starting with an on de Don sotabosc. Note his great athleticism, shown by the distance he travels and his great height on his leaps. He breaks up his sotabosc with a jeté entrelacé fouetté. For his turns en dehors, outside counterclockwise if turning on the right leg, note his takeoff from a second position, in which the feet are in a parallel line. Typically, dancers have a fourth position preparation, which is the easiest position to turn from, particularly when vying for many turns. However, boys in Russian and Soviet schools were taught to turn from second position. As they progress, teachers in those schools allow dancers to cheat their preparation by moving the working leg back a little into a quasi-second or a wide fourth position, which is essentially a non-existent position. Here is Baryshnikov with this type of a position. What Vasiliev does is closer to the school preparation. For the next turn, most dancers do a turn en dehors, as in the first turn. Vasiliev elects to do a turn en de Don, inward, which is a turn counterclockwise toward his standing left leg. Clearly, he was better at en de Don turns than en dehors. It is unusual for a dancer to do more turns inward, and he does an impressive 8 rotations, very noteworthy. Note how his preparation is through a second position as he builds momentum into his turn. An example of Vasiliev going out of his way to do en de Don turns in an unlikely place is the finish of Albrecht's Act 2 variation in Giselle, where other dancers do outward turns. Vasiliev finishes with a difficult double tour to a fouetté, repeated 6 times, a variant that I have not seen in this variation. Many dancers do a diagonal consisting of a double tour to turns in arabesque. Others do a double tour pirouette sequence, which is more involved and physically taxing, particularly at the end of a rigorous solo. He finishes with chaîné turns to a dramatic double tour to the knee. Take a look at his second variation, and I will be back with commentary. Vasiliev starts with a double rond de jambe en l'air, which is a leap with a circular movement of the leg, a variant I have not seen before in Don Quixote, then 5 pirouettes from his second position preparation. On his next segment, a coupé jeté ménage, circle, broken up by turning leaps in attitude. Note the substantial ground he covers and the height and split of his jumps, done with great authority. He finishes with a jeté entrelacé en tournant. For bonus coverage, here is his wife, Maximova. Maximova's fouetté series is extremely difficult, way ahead of her time, something that would be state-of-the-art for a current dancer. Many in the day did single turns, but Maximova opens with a double pirouette, then singles to build momentum, followed by a double turn with the hands on her hips, and a turn in attitude devant. She repeats this several times and finishes with a series of fouettes with hands on her hips. Her hand placement makes the turns more difficult because she can't rely on her arms for momentum, a tough variant. Another YouTube video shows her at age 22 in front of a live audience doing all 32 single turns with hands on her hips, a demonstration of great athleticism. Vasiliev's à la seconde turn section consists of multiple turns in second and a double turn in attitude derrière, a challenging turn sequence filled with razzle-dazzle. However, clearly, he was a better en de Don turner. Vasiliev was best known for the leading role in the Soviet classic Spartacus. Spartacus was a gladiator and military leader who led a major slave revolt against the Roman Republic and died in battle in 71 BC. In modern times, Spartacus is an insurrectionist hero, a symbol of freedom from oppression, particularly an inspirational icon for communists and socialists such as Lenin and Marx. As an important symbol for the Soviets, Bolshoi artistic director Grigorovich was assigned to choreograph a ballet based on the warrior for the 50th anniversary of the revolution to the score by Aram Khachaturian after 2 failed Bolshoi productions of the ballet in 1958 and 1962. Grigorovich's work celebrating the struggle for liberation and freedom premiered in 1968, shortly before the Soviets invaded Czechoslovakia. Grigorovich's work was a success, representing Soviet ballet power to fans globally. In a previous version, the tall Maris Lipa was Spartacus, a personification of strength and superiority. However, although not physically imposing at 5 foot 8 inches tall, Grigorovich unexpectedly gave the role to the shorter Vasiliev because of his dynamic stage presence. In hindsight, a wise choice. When fans greeted him after a performance, Vasiliev reminisced that they couldn't believe it was Vasiliev expecting a much taller man. "The stage is strange. It can make tall men seem small and vice versa," he said. This video clip is Vasiliev as Spartacus, inciting his fellow captives to revolt at the end of Act 1 in a searing emotional variation. At the beginning of the scene, Spartacus is anguished after Crassus, the Roman consul, orders him to the gladiatorial ring where Spartacus kills his friend. Vasiliev's dramatic talents are displayed in this dance, a mix of anguish over the killing and defiance. Very believable. If I were a soldier preparing for battle, I would want him as my leader. I will take you through a few items to watch for in the 6-minute variation, which plays to his strengths with many steps he is known for. Here are en dedans turns with a turned-in knee. Because turning in facilitates rotation, he does not go to a second position with his leg to the side. My favorite step is a series of beautiful double ensembles, which he does very well as he quickly goes to the knee. Here he does a series of jetés entrelacés, great purpose and energy. Same with his coupé jetés. Here's an en dedans saut de basque, which he also did at the start of his Don Quixote variation. His step here is slightly different with a turned-in leg. I'm not a fan of taking off from second position on pirouettes, but this does facilitate speed as he quickly pops into turns before quickly going to the next step. And his jeté cloches, in which his legs scissor in the air. To watch the entire 6-minute variation, click the card in the upper right corner. The variation is from 1972, from the documentary on Maximova and Vasiliev, Katya and Vladia, available on DVD and streamed on Medici TV. Enjoy the variation, and thanks for tuning in.